The city employee's voice cut through the sterile office air, sharp and loud for everyone to hear. "Oh my God, what is that smell?" An elderly woman in a tattered, damp raincoat flinched, her hands tightening on the handle of a rusted shopping cart. The staff at the Department of Community Services exchanged scornful glances, seeing only a nuisance, a piece of trash blown in by the storm. In that moment of public humiliation, none of them knew they were making the biggest mistake of their lives. They were blind to the world-changing secret she held, a secret powerful enough to bring the entire city to its knees. What incredible truth lay hidden behind the eyes of this forgotten woman? The answer would change Oakwood forever. It had all started that morning with a single, frantic phone call. The voice belonged to Chloe, an art student Esther loved like a granddaughter. "Grandma, my Oakwood Dream Scholarship. They said it's been suddenly terminated. What do I do?" Chloe's voice trembled with despair. "What? Why so suddenly?" "They don't know at the university. They just told me to go to the city's service department to find out." Esther's heart sank. "Chloe, don't you worry," she said, her voice calm despite her own anxiety. "I'll go find out what's going on." After hanging up, Esther let out a deep sigh. That child. I have to protect that child no matter what. This promise is what led her through the cold November rain, into the City Hall annex, and face to face with Frank, the security guard, who immediately blocked her way with a look of disgust. "Hey, lady, what are you doing here? Can collecting is for after business hours. Can't you see people are working?" Frank's eyes scanned Esther's old raincoat and her rusty shopping cart. Esther's voice was quiet but firm. "I'm here on official business," he scoffed. "Official business? What kind?" "Well, leave that piece of junk outside. This is a clean, professional space." As if he were granting her a great favor, Esther silently nodded, parked her cart, and walked inside, stepping into a confrontation that would soon captivate the entire nation. The air from the heater was warm, but the stares from the people were ice cold. Staff members wrinkled their noses as a faint, musty smell rose from Esther's damp clothes. And then she met her, Karen Miller, a city employee dressed in an expensive designer suit with immaculate makeup. An Ivy League graduate who took immense pride in her position, she saw Esther as nothing more than an unsightly nuisance.
"Oh my God, what is that smell? Someone open a window."
Karen said it loudly, speaking to a colleague but making sure Esther could hear. A few younger employees snickered. The words were a knife in the 80-year-old's heart, but Esther swallowed her humiliation, thinking of Chloe.
"Excuse me, I'm here about my granddaughter's scholarship."
Without even looking up, Karen snapped.
ID? Application form?
With trembling hands, Esther retrieved a set of papers from a plastic bag in her purse. Her fingers, bent with arthritis, struggled with the simple task.
"Here. It got a little wet in the rain, but you can still read it."
Karen took one look at the papers and grimaced.
You call this a document? It's soaked. We can't process this if you don't even come prepared.
Her voice grew colder and sharper. Then, before Esther could protest, Karen did the unthinkable. She stood up, walked over to the office shredder, and fed Esther's documents into it without a moment's hesitation.
"No!"
Esther's cry was drowned out by a high-pitched whir. Whirr. The machine tore Chloe's future and Esther's last hope into tiny, unrecognizable pieces. Overcome with shock and fury, Esther stumbled. Her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the cold tile floor. No one moved to help her. She only heard snickers and a muttered,
"Look at that."
For a woman who had lived her life with quiet integrity, this humiliation was a foreign, crushing weight. To make matters worse, Karen picked up the phone.
Yes, I have an unidentified homeless person here, causing a disturbance.
A blatant lie. She had seen Esther's ID. From a corner of the office, one man had been quietly observing the entire scene. It was David Chen, a reporter for the local online news outlet, the Oakwood Gazette. He had come to write a fluff piece on the city's Service with a Smile campaign, but had instead stumbled upon a shocking display of cruelty. This is beyond unacceptable, he thought. David discreetly used his phone to record and document everything. He managed to get a glimpse of the ID the police officer briefly handled, Esther Foreman. The name rang a faint bell. That night, David's fingers flew across his keyboard. The article, complete with photos, went viral overnight. The image of Esther, frail and defeated on the cold floor, struck a nerve and ignited a firestorm of public outrage. This is public service in 21st century America? This made me cry. She looks just like my grandmother. Fire that woman, Karen. Immediately. She needs to apologize publicly. Among the thousands of comments, one stood out. Wait a minute. Could that be Mrs. Esther Foreman, the angel of Oakwood who used to secretly help people decades ago? This single comment started a ripple of speculation among older residents. No way, one replied. It must be someone with the same name. The rumors spread, a quiet but persistent wave. At the same time, in a high-rise office in Chicago, Marcus Thorne, the CEO of Taurus Tech, froze as his assistant showed him the article. Esther Foreman, the name of the mysterious woman who had given him a no-interest loan 30 years ago when his first business failed, allowing him to start over. Meanwhile, in his own office, Oakwood's mayor Michael Thompson stared at the article in disbelief. The woman who had paid for his entire college education 40 years ago, when he was just a poor kid from an immigrant family. In the eyes of the woman in the photo, he saw the same warmth he remembered. It can't be, but if it is, Mayor Thompson made a decision. The next morning, the Department of Community Services was a war zone, besieged by angry citizens and news reporters. Karen Miller, seeing her name and face plastered all over the internet, was pale with terror. At 10 a.m. sharp, a black Rolls-Royce glided to a stop in front of City Hall. A chauffeur politely opened the rear door, and all eyes turned to see who would emerge. It was an elderly woman, dressed in an elegant black Chanel suit and a tasteful pearl necklace. Gone was the shabby figure from the day before. In her place stood a woman of overwhelming charisma and quiet dignity. The crowd murmured. Who is that? A celebrity? Then a citizen who had been there the day before shouted in astonishment, "Oh my God, that's the lady from yesterday." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Esther walked confidently into City Hall, where she was greeted personally by Mayor Thompson. At the press conference, the mayor stood at the podium, his voice thick with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a true pillar of Oakwood with us. This is Mrs. Esther Foreman," he continued. 40 years ago, I was able to finish college only because of her generosity." Just then, Marcus Thorne stood up and took a microphone. "And 30 years ago, I was saved from bankruptcy and able to build Taurus Tech because of her help." The room buzzed with excitement, but the real shock was yet to come. Marcus Thorne opened his briefcase. "And there is one more thing you should all know. Mrs. Esther Foreman is the actual owner of 13 blocks on Sycamore Avenue, our city's prime commercial district. She has also been this city's single largest taxpayer for the last 3 decades. The press conference fell dead silent. The owner of downtown's most valuable real estate and the top taxpayer, why would she? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The silence was broken by a man's shout from the crowd. "Wait a minute! So you're telling me that they humiliated a woman like that, told her she smelled, shredded her papers, and called the cops on her?" The room erupted in fury. After the chaos subsided, Esther calmly approached the microphone. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a power that resonated throughout the hall. "I want to ask you all one question. Does a person's worth depend on their clothes or their bank account? If I were truly just a poor old woman with a shopping cart yesterday, would it have been okay to treat me with such disrespect? A profound silence fell over the room. Everyone realized that their anger wasn't just directed at one callous employee, but at a society, and perhaps themselves, that was quick to judge others by their appearance. Esther looked at Karen with kind eyes. "I am not angry with you. You are not a bad person, just one who has not yet learned. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them." On her knees, Karen wept and apologized with genuine remorse. She was dismissed from her position, but later found her calling volunteering for a non-profit foundation. In the wake of that day, a wave of change washed over Oakwood. The Spirit of Esther Foreman movement was born, and public institutions across the city adopted a dignity in service policy as their guiding principle. Esther donated her entire fortune to establish the Heart of Oakwood Foundation, ensuring that no child like Chloe would ever have their dreams cut short by a lack of money. Chloe, the foundation's first scholarship recipient, would go on to become a brilliant human rights lawyer, forever inspired by her grandmother. The story of Esther Foreman left an enduring lesson. True wealth is not in a wallet, but in the heart. True class is not in the clothes we wear, but in how we treat others. And every single person, no matter their appearance, is worthy of respect.